Today, on its 2006 Ford F-150, we're going to install part number AL25592. This is an Airlift Low Controller 2 compressor system. Before we show you how it installs, we'll show you what it does and how it works. Now, the pressure sensor will always maintain a minimum PSI in the airbags to help keep their shape. So every time we turn on an ignition, it'll check for that, and it'll inflate the bags as needed. We'll go ahead and add more pressure to it. We'll go ahead and press on the rocker switch, and you can see how the airbags will kick on and the air gauge goes up. And the silver button below the rocker switch lets out the air. Let's go ahead and try it out. We'll go ahead and put a load in the back of our truck, and you can see how it sags down. So we'll go ahead and use our airbag system to help level it out. Now, we ran our PSI to about 60 pounds and got our truck back to level. Alright, let's go ahead and take it for a test drive and see how it feels. Now we'll show you how it installs. A few notes before we begin is that our truck already has a set of airbags installed on it. We're going to upgrade these airbags, also from Airlift, to work with our low controller. Our first step is to go ahead and find a place for our air gauge. Under our dashboard, towards the right hand side, next to the diagnostic port, is a small piece of metal we can use to attach it to. Now, the bracket for the air gauge has a hole in each side, but the metal doesn't go all the way across. We're going to drill an extra hole about a ½ inch away from the hole on the left hand side, so we have 2 screws holding it to the metal. We'll go ahead and drill it out with a 3/16 drill bit, and we're going to go ahead and set it aside for now. Next, we'll go ahead and find a place for our compressor unit. We're going to install ours on the driver's side frame rail underneath the truck, just behind the transmission. We'll go ahead and hold it in place, and then go ahead and mark for our holes. We're going to take one of the self-tapping screws that comes with the kit and use it to mark our first hole. We'll take the compressor down, and we'll go ahead and drill it out. After a hole's drilled out, we'll go ahead and remove the screw and then reinstall the compressor. That'll help hold it up while we install the rest of our fasteners. With all 4 screws installed, that'll finish it for mounting up our compressor. Now we can go back up to our air gauge and install the wiring harness labeled number 1 in the instructions. This will be the wire harness with the low pressure sensor gauge attached to it already. Now the end we're going to hook up will be our black line with the 2 spade connectors. We'll go ahead and push our airline onto the remaining part of the T that's behind the air gauge. And then we'll go ahead and connect our other 2 spade terminals. They'll go behind the rocker switch. Now the spade terminal with the 2 wires will go in the center pin, and the spade terminal with the single wire will go to the remaining pin behind the rocker switch. Next, we'll go ahead and work with harness number 2. We'll go ahead and attach that to our air compressor underneath. This end will have an airline as well with a T already connected to it, and also a short piece of airline that'll go into the barbed fitting on the end of the air compressor. And then have a lone red wire with a spade terminal. We'll connect that red wire with the red wire from the compressor. We'll push those 2 together and seal them up with some electric tape. And then we'll take our black wire from the compressor and run that straight to ground. We'll use an extra self-tapping screw to accomplish this. Now we'll take the other end of harness number 2 and we have to run that to the inside. Now there's a grommet on the driver's side door at the very bottom. We'll go ahead and use a knife to cut through the grommet to make a slit. And then we'll go ahead and run the other half of our wire harness through the slit and into as far as we can. Next, we'll go inside the truck and we'll go ahead and remove a threshold. It simply pops off. We'll pull back the carpet and look for our airline that we ran through. We'll go ahead and pull it out along with the red wire. We'll go ahead and pull up enough of the airline and the wire to meet up with our first harness. We'll pull up a little more than we need, and we can always return the rest of the line back underneath. we'll go ahead and hook up our number 2 harness to our first harness. So we'll go ahead and take our black Airline and run it into the T for a pressure switch. All we gotta do is push it in and then give it a small tug back to lock it into place. We'll take a red wire and go ahead and connect it to the Spade terminal on a pressure switch. With everything connected, we'll go ahead and leave it alone for now. Now we'll go ahead and work on our Airline going back to our airbags. Going back to our air compressor, we'll go ahead and take the extra length of line and go ahead and connect it to the T. We'll route that along underneath the body of the truck and out to the driver's side frame rail, on our way back to the back axle and the airbags. We'll go ahead and run our line past our airbag, and then where we need it, we'll go ahead and cut it and connect that to the center section of our T, and then we'll connect our Airline from our air compressor to one of the sides of the T. We'll also take some of the excess and use a small piece of line. We'll go ahead and put it into the T and connect that directly to the airbag. Now for our third leg of our T, we need to run that to the other side. We'll go ahead and reuse some of the Airline from our airbags that are originally installed. We'll go ahead and put it into the T, run it across, and go directly into the other airbag. Next, we'll go ahead and turn our attention to the power wire. This is located on harness number 1. This will be a red wire with a fuse holder attached to it and a Spade terminal. We need to take this wire and run it over to the passenger side, over to the fuse box. Now we run our wire to the fuse panel. We're going to go behind the console. We're actually going to use another piece of old Airline tubing to help pull it through. We're actually going to pull a wire through one of the vents that goes to the other side. And also we found out that our wire is going to be a little bit short. We'll cut off towards the end, then let's go ahead and section in a length of wire. So our kit does come with some extra lengths of wire, so we'll use it to go ahead and extend the length. We'll add our butt connectors that come with the kit to our section of wire. And then we'll go ahead and connect it to our original wire. That way we can reuse our Spade connector already at the end of our wire. Now this red wire will use power from the fuse box. So we need to use a fuse that only gets power when the key is turned on. Now this will vary between vehicles and trim packages. In this case, we used a fuse that was labeled for power for the audio, power door lock switch, and moonroof switch illumination. So we go ahead and test it to make sure it works, that it does not have power when the key is off. And when it does have power, when the key is turned to the on. Once we're satisfied with the one we want, we'll go ahead and remove the fuse. We'll have to look for the side of a fuse that gets power. So we'll go ahead and probe the socket and look for which one gets power first. Once we know that, we can go ahead and connect our wire to that side of the fuse. We'll take our fuse tap, which is a small brass fitting that'll fit over the end of the fuse. It just wraps around the leg and then snaps over the top. Then we'll take our power wire and attach it to the Spade connector on top. Then we can go ahead and reinstall the fuse. Now for extra wire coming out from the fuse, we're going to have to make a notch in the box so we have room to run our wire to the outside. We're going to use this rotary tool to make a small notch to put our wire into. Then we can go ahead and reinstall the cover. With the cover back in place, we'll go ahead and tuck our wire behind the carpeting. Or if you'd like, you can also zip tie it to some wiring just below the edge of the dashboard on the passenger side. Alright, now we need to get some wires ran for our gauge light. Using the remaining length of wire that comes with our kit, our red or black wire, we'll go ahead and add 2 Spade terminals to each end. These two spade terminals will connect to the back side of the air gauge. This will be for illumination. And then we'll go ahead and run our power for illumination. What we're going to do is run it up to the back side of a switch on the dashboard. So we can go ahead and just remove the panel itself, and the whole switch comes out with it. We'll go ahead and probe for a wire to see what gets power when we turn on the lights. In this case, it was a white wire with a red stripe. Now we run our wire to the switch. We're going to go behind the console. So we'll use this quick splice connector to attach a red wire to that wire. We simply take our quick splice connector and connect it to our illumination wire, and then we'll take a red wire and slide it in next to it. We'll make sure it goes in all the way till it bottoms out. Then we'll go ahead and use a pair of pliers to squeeze it together to make our electrical connection. We'll go ahead and snap the cover back on it, and we can go ahead and reinstall the switch. Now our black wire, we need to run directly to ground. So we'll go ahead back towards the bottom of the dash, and using the provided ring terminal, we'll attach that to the wire, and then we'll use an extra self-tapping screw to run that to the sheet metal at the bottom of the dashboard. Okay, with this, all our electrical connections are made. Now we'll install our gauge using the hardware provided. Now we'll tuck our wires underneath the carpet and reinstall the threshold. We'll go ahead and take our wires and airlines and zip tie them out of the way to make sure everything is safe and secure and won't interfere with the pedals. And then we'll go underneath the truck and go ahead and make sure our lines going to our air compressor are all secure as well. Okay, and with that, that'll finish it for our install part number AL25592 from Airlift on our 2006 Ford F-150.